There are elements I loved and other bits where I think it was a very big slow burn. It definitely made you think about things, but there are pieces where I thought they could have developed a little bit more to take it to that next level. But I love the cast. Like anything with Keanu Reeves in it, I'm in. And Elle Fanning, I'm in.
I see. And you had also experience in modeling, as I noticed, right? You were also in fashion industry. So before going through this movie, would you tell us briefly about your experience in this?
I think I grew into my face in my later years. So I think when I started modeling, I wasn't as good as some of the other models. So I don't think I had many of the same experiences, but I had lovely people that I worked with. So I don't think I did as much high fashion. I would do normal work or really crazy creative stuff, which is kind of similar to what was in the film, where people paint you in gold, and which is way more fun. But I think the people I come across because they're in Australia, they're so lovely. Like I didn't get the same catty vibe. I've witnessed it, don't get me wrong. I've seen a glimpse into that world and that behavior. But for the most part, I had super lovely experiences. Normally, makeup artist is like your best buddy and is your champion, not someone that's got ulterior motives. Because traditionally, you're their canvas, so they want to be like on good terms with you, and they want to make sure that their work is displayed properly. But other than that, yeah, I've had to say I had a good experience for the most part. But that's because I probably wasn't at that top of a level where I think that's when the the stress and maybe some of the not nicest decisions are being made to keep your longevity in the industry potentially. But again, I don't know. I
Yeah,
wasn't
I
there.
asked about you because time to time, maybe through my questions, I should also come back to that and ask about your personal view about it because it would be very interesting.
Oh, look, I've seen some stuff which is questionable, don't get me wrong. Like it is, but I think just with any industry, like there are good sides to any industry and there are bad sides to industries when people aren't held accountable or there's no measures in place to keep people in check. But yeah, for the most part, anything directly to me, people were pretty lovely. But I'm very tall, and I don't know. I have a very good witty sense of humor, so I think I have different conversations with people, like we have now.
And which role do you think in this movie you would like to play as an actress?
Ooh, that is a good one. Elle Fanning's role is good, but it's way too innocent, and I don't think I'd do it justice.
No, you could do it definitely. But I
Good, but
think,
maybe I want to be the villain. I want to be. I think it's Abby Lee, who's an Australian actress. I want to be her eating and doing the like.
so she was the most jealous of Elle in that movie.
Because I think playing evil characters are like I don't get to play enough of them, but I reckon evil characters are really interesting because they're so far outside what I'd normally do that you could just let loose. I reckon it'd be so much fun.
Yeah, I love the way they show jealousy through her eyes. The way she was staring at Elle, it was really something in some shots. And then later, it was started by Sarah, this character of Abby. But later, other models were adding to this group. Like, for example, Gigi.
Mm-hmm.
Later, she was added because later she understood, okay, she could be a big competitor for me. So at the
Mm-hmm.
beginning, she didn't take Elle that much seriously. She knew she has potential, but later she was added to this. So that was interesting. And
It's fear
I,
of the unknown, do you know what I mean? And fear of change. And so they chose the known than experiencing any bit of change and having their career potentially tampered with, which is interesting.
yeah, and personally, I think you would do great job for the role that Christina Hendricks played as
Oh,
that manager in that company for choosing the
yeah,
model. Yes,
yeah. She'd
that
be fun too. I think she's a phenomenal actress. I love everything that she does. Like, yeah. Because she really had a breakout role. Was that Mad Men? Was that where she was in?
I
Yeah,
think so.
that's where
Yes.
I was like, oh my God, she's phenomenal in Mad Men. I love that series. Like, yeah. But I love, do you know what I love? I love the color grading of the film. And at times I found the soundtrack jarring, but at the same time, it gave me massive Suspiria vibes. I'm not sure if you've seen Suspiria, but it's like similar
I see.
premise. It's got really good like color blocking. Obviously, there's a dance floor that's super competitive, and there's a bit of a demon element. Probably a bit more further than obviously this film, but I saw elements of influence from Suspiria in this film.
Yeah, you're right about that. I didn't like personally Suspiria that much, but they used also very good actors. But I didn't like the story. But the story of this movie was for me something else, and
Mm,
that's why I could feel more connected to this one. Maybe,
mm.
maybe I didn't understand Suspiria. Why I should go through it once more, but I couldn't find that connection with it. I
Yeah.
don't know.
I think it's just very abstract in Suspiria, but I think the colors and that kind of the playlist that they kind of coordinated all the scenes with the colors with, so Suspiria. Like it's yeah, to me I was like, oh, I'm watching another film. But you're right, they had a little bit more developed with the jealousy, but I think they could have developed the plot line, the characters a bit better or at least faster. I feel like in the beginning, like nothing, you kind of dragged for a while until halfway through the film. And then once you hit halfway, then things start getting interesting and then you start seeing the jealousy and the interplay between all the different characters. In the beginning, you kind of like led on a wild goose chase. Like, is it the makeup artist who's going to victimize her? Like, try and yeah, make her a victim, or is it the photographer, or is it the guy that's at the motel? Is he the one that's going to like take her innocence? Like, you're kind of on this journey in the beginning of like who's going to take her innocence, like who's going to destroy that little deer in headlights facade she has. And then later on, you're like, no, it's like your own people, your own kind is going to destroy you.
Yes, but personally, I also liked the first half of the movie. I think it was a good introduction, and also it was not boring for me because each scene also meant something. And exactly, I observed the same thing in her movie that we talked about before. Like, okay, maybe the story doesn't go fast and doesn't show the potential of each character that much,
Mm,
but each scene has the meaning of itself. That's how I saw this movie.
yeah. If you saw each scene as a standalone piece and the composition with the color and the sound, definitely. I think where it kind of got lost is when you string them all together. Like if this is a thinking film. This is like a film that you have to really sit down and probably watch once or twice. And I think that's kind of the feedback they had when they went through the festivals. Like 50% of people, I think, absolutely loved it because they could really sit and digest it, whereas 50% didn't because it probably went.
Yeah, it had some bold scenes for sure. That's why
Yeah,
I
the
don't
knife
blame them.
scene and then the morgue scene. I was like, ah. Like, I don't want to say.
Yeah, it was one of those movies where, as I told you, each scene has a meaning, and then you
Mm,
don't want to go that much fast with it, actually. Like,
mm,
I observed the same thing in Sofia Kapalo, if I pronounce her name correctly. The
mm.
way she directs movies, like, for example, I don't know if you watched the Beguiled movie. Also, Elle
No.
Fanning starred in it. So, like, Lost in Translation, maybe.
Yeah,
Have you seen this movie,
yeah,
Lost?
yeah. I've seen that one. Yeah.
So when in these kind of movies, when you wait for something to happen and find
Yeah.
the goal of this movie, sometimes you don't appreciate each scene. I think
Yes.
for
True.
this is one of those movies. Then you should consider each scene separately, then see the whole picture maybe
Yeah.
at the end.
Yeah. And I reckon they've used mechanics that I'm still like have washed over me. I'm still trying to figure out the prisms and like, how when she's in this weird phase, she's always in like reds and blues and like there's probably some color code that I haven't yet figured out because I haven't watched it enough to figure out, okay, what are they trying to convey in this color coding pattern and like these geometric shapes. So yeah, there's definitely layers to this film that you need to kind of sit and digest.
Definitely, because I watched it so many times. That's why maybe I noticed some things.
Maybe, and I've only watched
Yeah.
it once or twice, and every time I'm like, I do find something different every time I watch it, but then it kind of also goes over my head a little bit. Maybe
I,
because it's too close to home. Like, because I think my brain switches into that's not my experience of the modeling world, and then my brain goes in this weird tangent of like, is that what it's really like? Did I like miss out on this whole like another universe of modeling?
yeah. And what do you think about Elle Fanning performance in this movie?
I think she did really well in the sense of she has that innate innocence that what they said, the deer in headlights look, that flawlessness. But then you could see a little bit, and I don't know if that was intentional, like towards the end, the power like seeping into her eyes, like she was losing the deer in headlights and gaining this authority, like I have power. Like
Yeah, they
I'm not gonna
want
say
to be
it, still
me.
gonna act innocent, but I have power.
Yes. And I never took Elle seriously before this role. I saw her, for example, in Maleficent movie.
Yeah.
I know, okay, she's the young and attractive sister of Dakota. So, okay, I saw her that way. But after
Yeah,
this movie, I really changed my mind about her. She is really a good actress.
she is. Yeah, she has that innocence vibe. She does so well. Hence Maleficent, because obviously you have to be the innocent one in that. But she really does know how to convey that. But then she went really dark, like in that dinner scene where she tells that photographer slash kind of boyfriend to leave, like how that switch. She went from this innocent, unassuming personality to like, I'm like this vixen, and if you don't like it, get out. Like, it's really weird, but very
Yeah,
well
that
played.
yeah, that was really weird. But that moment, I think she just let it go. Like she accepted her fate as a part of this
Yeah.
industry. So
She
before
lied
that,
about her age, yeah.
yes. So little by little it happened actually, if you notice. But this change of behavior, as you say, it was all of a sudden about the
Mm,
boyfriend, of course. But
mm,
this acceptance of being a part of this fashion industry was something which happened to her step by step somehow.
mm. And I think, you know, the fake boyfriend, I don't know if he was, because obviously he was a photographer, they only just met and then they were starting to develop a relationship. I think his character is underappreciated because he played that really well to show the innocent, lovely side of the industry. And like, you know, when she says she's 16, he's like, oh, I think I've left something on in the kitchen or whatever he says to like try and bail. But then he gives her some really lovely advice of like, do what you think is right, which she didn't take clearly. And that's why she ended up being eaten.
Yes, and one part which was very interesting for me was the part when there was a creator. What was the name of that creator? Um Alessandro Nivola played it. Robert. Robert played as their designer and the creator.
Yeah,
So if you remember, there was a scene that, as you told, like she told the boyfriend to go to leave
yeah,
the place. So and there was an interesting conversation about
yeah,
between the boyfriend and the creator,
yeah,
and he mentioned about that beauty is the only thing, not even everything, is the only thing.
yeah,
And he didn't agree, and the boyfriend said, no, what is inside counts.
yeah,
But it exactly what happened proved the point of the creator,
yeah,
because the boyfriend somehow chose that girl because of not the personality, but because of the beauty, because she didn't have a good personality after all.
yeah. She still chose the industry over him and backing him. So yeah, she didn't have. Although it did not prove both of them right, because in the end, her not having a personality means that she ended up having her demise, and it was also her beauty that was her demise. So then, is it not that he was actually right all along, but in the sense of that industry, obviously beauty counts for everything. That's how shallow they were. That's obviously how
Yes,
they all
yes,
die.
of course. He was just right about that conversation with the boyfriend. Like the way you chose her actually is based on that. So don't tell
Mm,
me about that what is
yeah,
inside counts.
yeah.
So that part was right. But as you said, of course, it's not true even that beauty is the only thing. We agree with that.
Well, because you could even say, I think at the end it points up to that because the same girl whose looks hadn't changed, but because she had consumed the youthful one, the photographer then wanted to reuse her again, but her looks hadn't changed. So I
Yes.
think that in itself is a statement that beauty's not everything. It's optics. Perception is reality. Like you can position and say that you're something new, and then people are gullible enough to believe it. Do you know what I mean? Like it comes back. Beauty comes around in fashion in circles. Wait long enough, you'll be hip again.
That's really good point. I never noticed that. You're right, because that's what maybe they also intentionally try to show.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about that.
And
Yeah.
persistence pays off. When everyone's dead and you're the only option left, of course they're going to use you. So I don't know. Is there any meaning to just kill all of your competition and then you'll win? It's a really dark meaning.
That's why this movie is actually not a masterpiece, but very good. You know,
Yes.
it has so many sides, but it has some stupid part, as you mentioned.
Yeah.
Maybe this is one of, and
Like the
Sleepy.
cougar, I still want to try and figure out what do they mean? Like, what was the symbolism of having the cougar in the apartment? And is that because she's becoming a cougar, or a cougar is like a wealthy female who well-to-do is out to get her? Like, I would really love to understand what was the message of the cougar scene. And then at the end, it was
Yes,
just really confusing me. You know how afterwards the motel owner was like, "Now you're liable for all the damages," as if it's normal for someone to bring a giant cat into their hotel room to do damage, especially a small, frail girl. I was like, there's obviously something in this where I'm like, I just went over my head. Like, I need to think about this more and go, what was the point of the cougar scene? And then Keanu Reeves telling her that she's liable for the damages. Like, is that to say that beauty is like you're liable for what the fallout from your beauty? I don't know.
yeah. Also, I didn't get that. And
Mm,
yes, we are talking about Neon Demon that some guys asked. Sorry, it's not mentioned in the topic. Yes, you're right.
yeah,
And
Neil
uh,
Demon. Is it Sal? Hey, Sal. I think that's one of my dreams.
so Keanu Reeves played a different role. So what do you think about that?
I I love Keanu Reeves, just hands down. I just think he's phenomenal, and also in general, like the most loveliest human being on earth. One day I hope to meet him and just go, thank you for like redeeming my idea of Hollywood. There's still gentlemen out there. Um, yeah, he can play dark, but I don't know. Whenever I see him, I still feel like he's not the bad guy, even though in this film he was trying to convey as the bad guy. Like he still is charming to me, even when he's being an asshole. I don't
You're
know
right.
why.
You're
But
right.
I don't know. For me, if I see him in a shot, he's all consuming. He knows how to like own the scene. Like you just can't stop looking at him. That's probably why in the knife, he was him that was holding the knife, right? It's not the other guy. It was him, yeah. So even then, I feel like it was a choice to cut his head out of the scene so that you wouldn't be distracted by Keanu Reeves. Because I'd be like, Keanu Reeves.
Yes, and it was very hard to believe he's the bad guy there. But no matter how good he played, it was hard to hate him, even in
Oh,
that
I
movie.
didn't hate him at all. I was annoyed at him, but then at the same time, he has his reasons. Maybe his business is going under, and he really needs that room to be. I don't know. I was making excuses for him in my head.
No, we couldn't justify that character, especially when he said room 214 got to be seen.
Yeah.
You know?
And then I thought when he broke into the room, a little part of me was like, "Yippee! He's the hero! Look at him break through that room!" And then there's a cougar there. I was like, "Okay, is he gonna wrestle the cougar?"
Yeah, that moment was good. Like he's protecting her exactly. That's the other side of character, but again, he ruined it by mentioning about the damage of the room.
Yeah. And then when he's asked, he's like, "So it's $100?" Like, no, it's 200 now.
Yes, and what do you think about that photographer, that character in this movie?
The one that was painting the gold,
Yes,
the one that was so
yes,
fickle, he gave me uber creepy vibes. Like, and I'm sure that was intentional when he was doing the clothes set and asking her to get naked and then painting her with gold. But then obviously he was just more involved and invested in the gold, which then was like, I don't know, is that a commentary on creatives that they've got tunnel vision, like that they're so consumed in their creative or recreating the vision that's in their head they're completely oblivious of what's going on around them or how they may come across to other people. Because you could see, even afterwards, he picked her. He didn't care who she was. He didn't care that he's seen her 50 million times. He wanted that creative. It's like, all right, come do this. It's so I'm guessing there's some commentary on that in the sense that he's not the bad guy. He's not the good guy either. Like he's completely removed. He's not even in the same world as all these people.
Yeah, it was very interesting the way they illustrated him because, as you said, he was creepy, but
Mm,
at the same time, he was a professional photographer. Like
mm,
he didn't want to misuse the model. He
no.
was just doing his job.
His job. He was just consumed with what his output was going to be, which is ironic because then the makeup artist was like, remember, she gives the number and she's like, anything's odd, you give me a call. And she's the one that had ulterior motives throughout the entire time. Whereas he was just stuck on the creative. It was like, this is what I want to do, this is my art. Whoever does it, I don't give a shit as long as it's executed the way that I want it. So that,
Exactly, they illustrated this really good. That that was the one actually was harmful for her, not that photographer. And
mm,
also even the boyfriend, surprisingly, because the boyfriend had different motives. Like that photographer just wanted to do the job and just move on.
yeah.
But that photographer was a nice guy. We agreed that was a nice guy, but at the same time, he had
He had altered, he
maybe
wanted to,
other
yeah,
motives.
pursue a relationship with her. Yeah.
Yes,
He
he
still
so
was
even
enamored by her beauty. He still was trying to get a taste of her beauty for himself, just like the
exactly.
makeup artist who he may have not wanted to eat her in the usual terms. Sure, he wanted to eat her in another way, but hey, full circle moment there in the film. But yeah, it's an interesting commentary.
And what do you think is the best way to survive is in this industry? Okay, in this movie, they show the extreme side of it, maybe. Like, as you say, it's not all bad. It has also its beauty. It's not that cruel. But
Mm,
in such an atmosphere, how to survive? Because you are surrounded with jealous people, and this is truth. Like other mother could be
yeah,
jealous of you, and other people even are jealous of you for different reasons. So
yeah,
they want to bring you down, basically. So
true.
how do you
I feel like
survive?
there's a commentary on innocence. Like you can't feign innocence and absolve yourself of responsibility in this situation. Does that make sense? It's like there's still a cost with your innocence. Like there's still like you've decided to engage, and if your innocence has an effect, you're still responsible for that effect. And you can't go, oh, I'm just innocent. I'm just here to whatever. Like you're still got the same objective as everyone else to get work and whatnot. So you have to own that and be responsible for that and be responsible for the fallout as a result if it impacts others. Like you can't feign innocence and still be selfish in a weird way. So that was an interesting commentary on that. How to survive. I think surround yourself with good people. I think she didn't vet the people that were around her, and then she chose not to listen to the people that genuinely were trying to protect her, which was that, like, he may have wanted to obviously pursue a relationship with her, but still, his interests were to take care of her. Like, hence, he was willing to pay for the damages and whatnot. Whereas she didn't vet the makeup artists or the other girls that she was hanging around with. She wanted to fit in with them, not realizing that they didn't want her to fit in with them. They wanted to make sure that, keep your friends close, keep your enemies closer. They saw her as an enemy and they wanted her close. They knew what she was doing. So I think choose your inner circle wisely.
Yes, you're right. She was not clever enough to do that. As you said, she shouldn't have let others to isolate her like this. She just
Mm,
lost the ones who care, genuinely care for her, or at least for other reason, which was not harmful. Just she led them away because she thought they
mm,
want to be her. She was
yeah.
so proud of herself suddenly.
I think even her backstory in the film was interesting. Like she had no parents, no one, and yet she chose an industry where it's clearly like everyone has their own motivations and want outcomes. she didn't protect herself. And then, but I, like as a woman, when I was watching the beginning of the film, like she was telling everyone where she lived by herself in a motel. I'm like, no, you tell no one where you live. You tell people you live with 5, 7 different other people in your house somewhere. Like you don't tell people you live on your own in a motel when you've just moved to a new state. I was like, is this 101 of safety?
Exactly. So she made so many bad mistakes, but still the situation she was in was not that easy. And
Mm,
also I was thinking, how far should you go in fashion industry? Because they also show this scene, especially with that photographer. That first he said like, take your clothes off. Then
mm,
he said all of it.
mm.
Then little by little, like this line, you don't know where you should stop.
Yeah.
So where in this fashion industry we should stop, and where it considered to be not ethical anymore, you know? So that's
Mm.
really a hard
Especially
question
when
to
you're
answer.
16. I
Yes, yes.
think that was the interesting one there. And look, art is one thing, but yeah, there is an ethical conversation that has to happen where they're still children. I think at 16, they still need an adult present. If there's no adult present, you shouldn't be going and doing that stuff. That's in my mind. Like, at least allow them to be consenting adults. At 16, I don't know what the laws are overseas. In Australia, you're not really an adult when you're 16. 18, yes.
But
But
let's
yeah,
say even she was 18, still,
it's
uh,
still there's still
how
a
far can you
power
go?
play there. You're 100% right, and I think that's when you need people in your inner circle to educate and go, is this something that you really want to do? Is this something you're comfortable doing? And 10 years from now, if you asked yourself the question, would you have been happy to have done this? If your answer is yes, by all means go and do whatever makes you happy. Because everyone has different comfort levels. Everyone wants to express art and their physicality different. We shouldn't all be governed by the same laws around your own body and your own image. I think you're the best person placed to do it, so long as you have a good network of people that can educate you and inform you to make your own informed decision. I think when you're put on the spot and you're put under time pressure and you're not allowed to be able to go and you don't feel like you can say no, that's when I have an issue. But if you don't have a time pressure, if you've got a supportive network around you and you can have a think about it before you want to do it and you still want to go do it, go for it. Like, it's art. Everyone expresses themselves differently. But yeah, you're right. In the film, it did show it's like time pressure. You have an incentivization that you're struggling for cash. There's definitely a power imbalance in that moment when it comes to making that decision if it's the right one for you.
Yes, even the challenges to be famous, for example, sometimes it's really tempting. Like this photographer is very famous, he can get you to places. And then she was thinking, okay, should I do it? Should I stop? Then she didn't know. But actually, he was fine. We know that he was
Mm,
professional, but still, it was so creepy, and we don't know what would happen. And you know, even for movies, like when they ask us to play nudity, for example, as a role, then as you mentioned, maybe it's important who is the group, who is the team behind it.
mm,
If they are professional, there is no harm. But if they are
mm,
not professional, it's really dangerous. How to even
mm.
distinguish?
Although in the film, as soon as he said it's a closed set, I knew that it was going to be nudity. And then part of me was like, oh, if he's doing a closed set, he is kind of is professional because he's not exposing her unwillingly to so many people. But then on the other side, I was like, well, the photo's going to be, I don't know where the photo's going to be published. So the whole world's going to see her naked anyway. So then I was like, oh,
Yes. And as we mentioned, it's very hard to think, okay, where to stop. Because let's say, for example, one famous producer uh, offer very good role, but it's suspicious. Like, is it a professional environment? Like, okay, he's famous. I know he's a good director. He's a famous director. But is he professional in ethical terms? So these are really hard questions to answer.
yeah, very hard questions. And you're going to get, like, in this industry, there are always, like I said, any industry, there are good apples and there are bad apples. Like I said, you have to draw it back to if in 10 years' time you looked at this body of work, would you still be content that you've done it? And were you able to do an informed decision? And also, I think even in this, whether it's modeling, whether it's any creative endeavor, anything in life, you still have the right to halfway through change your mind and go, I'm not comfortable with this, and stop doing it. And you shouldn't be penalized for it, because that's life. That's being human. You're allowed to have a choice, and our choices change depending on the information we're fed. So I think if someone says, you know what, was comfortable, but now I'm not comfortable, it shouldn't be a conversation. Cool. I understand money's on the line and all the rest of it, but I don't think if someone's uncomfortable, are you really going to get the best quality work out of them? Probably not. And so you're going to lose anyway. Why would you rather not lose and lose for being an ethical person and championing the right to have a choice, than lose because you push someone to do something they haven't really nailed it because they're uncomfortable, and then you've still lost money anyway on the project. So yeah, it's an interesting conversation and question to have in this industry, whatever creative endeavor it is.
Yes, you're right. It's very important that there should be opportunities for actors or models that, as you said, as soon as they feel uncomfortable for any reason, they think that this is not a professional set anymore, some unethical things is happening. So in this case, yes, there should be opportunity for them to just leave it, even if they lose money through this, even if they cannot go to court and sue that person, but still they should be able to leave the set. And not everyone, I think, has that courage.
No,
If-
unfortunately, I think it's something you develop as you get older and you refine what it is to be who you are. And then once you have those boundaries in place, I think you're more likely to then say no or say yes or whatever. I think it's harder when you're younger and you're still figuring out what those boundaries look like for you as an individual. And you're going to make mistakes because you're figuring out, you don't know what you don't know. So you don't know if you're uncomfortable with something and you're doing like, didn't like that. I'm going to do that again.
yeah, and it's not cool also that they finish the project, then sue the producer because you were already in this team
Yeah,
and
and
you
you
accepted to be a
continued
part of
and you
it.
didn't. Yeah, yeah. I think there's on both sides there's some education that needs to be had around how to deal with uncomfortable circumstances and having uncomfortable conversations. There's a lot of industries I've come across where people are not good at that. Ironically, if you deal with money, moreover than not, you're pretty good with handling conflict and difficult conversations, because the person you're always trying to sell to wants it for the cheapest rate, and you as the person who's selling always want it for the best rate. So it's always going to be conflict. So you just got to get used to it. It's the people that don't deal with money on a regular basis, I feel they're the ones that are most cautious and unlikely to go into conflict conversations, which is ironic.
Yes, you're right. So, Kasia, I really enjoyed our talk today. There are so many things still we can talk about this movie, and maybe even we can do it in another time. But because not to lose our video, as you remember, after 30 minutes, Instagram becomes
Yeah, we
tricky.
talk way too much. We can talk forever, and I've got wine, so I can keep going for ages.
But there were so many interesting topics we talked about. Thank you so much. You joined me today. I know you said you had such a rough weekend. I really
Well, I
appreciate
was
it.
dealing with kids and animals on a show producing. So the two things they tell you not to do in showbiz, I did that all weekend, and I still loved it.
That's great. Thank you so much, Kasia. See you. See you, everyone. Thank you for joining me.
Good
Bye
night
for now.
and good morning, wherever you are.
See you, Kasia.
Thank you.